So I'm just double checking my measurements. I'm not trying to get this exactly perfect, but I just want some rough estimates because we're going to cut out a template to just see how it all fits together. Because I can take a measurement from this shoulder to the waist, and you don't really get a good idea of how it all fits together until you put it all together. So with these measurements, I've got enough to cut out basically kind of a blank canvas, and from there I'll start modifying the neck to get the neckline right, to get everything just right. And from that template, that's what I use to create a template for the material where I actually sew this thing together. So from your template, you'll have to account for your hemmed edges. Just like when I started listing all the parts of the costume, you go very broad, and then you nail it down, going more and more specific to where all right, exactly all the pieces there, how much you need, lengths, etc. That's what I do with the template. I just cut a very general template, and then I fine tune it. I may cut pieces away. I may tape pieces on you. I may have made something too short or too thin. That's what it goes to. Like, I'm happy with it, and it's paper, so it doesn't hang quite right on my body, so you can't quite get the nuance of how the material will drape. But I've been doing it this way for a number of years, and it gives me a good enough idea. It's kind of nice having a camera here because I can look into the camera instead of trying to find a mirror somewhere or bring a mirror down here and look right in there, and it gives you just a little better look. The mirror is kind of static. I guess the camera's static. I don't know. There's something about the camera that it just looks different. I like the wool. From the start, I just liked the wool better, even though I'm not sure it's quite accurate to the costume. Again, it's a video game. I'm not sure anybody's thought about material. I like the wool better just looking at it. It's kind of like the way it drapes. It's got a little bit more weight to it. With this muslin material, I will have to do double thickness just because it's very thin material, which can be a boon, but in this case, I don't love that. So the real question here is, can I dye strip this wool? Because I need it just about white so I can dye it yellow. Because if I try to dye this yellow, it's going to be way too dark. So I don't know if it'll strip. It may be something where I need to wash it. That'll be something I need to look up to. That'll be something I need to look into, where I need to wash it. I don't know. I don't know if there's anything on this that would prevent it from being dye stripped. Bleach. You don't want to use bleach. Bleach would just eat through material. There is a specific dye stripper that I will be getting, and I'll probably just cut like a little small piece of this and just use a little bit of dye stripper just to get an idea of how does it work. Because if I get a small piece and just a couple drops of dye stripper and it turns it lighter in a minute, well, then I know that's going to work for this large piece. But I've liked this wool from the beginning. I like the feel of the wool. I like the look of the wool, the thickness of it. So I think that's what the tunic is. I think we figured that out. And that's assuming I can dye strip it. Now, if I can't dye strip it, well, I'm going to go with the muslin because I need it yellow. If it's not yellow, it's just not scorpion. I'm really liking what I got done tonight. I've got a tunic tabard. I don't know what it's called. If you know, let me know in the comments. It looks pretty close. I mean, it's got some still, like, you know, kind of curves out here, and there's still some weirdness, but overall, you know, where the edges hit me in the shoulder, how it all kind of comes down, where it hits me in the belt line, how the tabard comes all the way down, you know, just above my knee, like, all the points kind of hitting from the reference photo to where it seems like it should hit on me. Stuff like this, I always like to, once I kind of got it where I think, all right, this is it, I like to sit it down, come back the next day, just try it on again, look at it again, move around a little bit, see what my range movement's going to be. I mean, it's a little weird. It's paper. It's not quite going to drape like cloth would, but it gives you a good idea. You can kind of pull it and see where the points hit. And I'm just looking for reference points. You know, shoulders, belt line, above the knee, the width, you know, where it's hitting me in the waist. Everything's looking good. I'm really happy with what I've got. I'm going to let it sit. I'm going to check on it tomorrow. It's all a matter of just creating this template, refining it. The front tabard, I cut it where I thought it needed to be, and by the end of it, I had to shorten it 2 inches. The back, I cut that where I thought it needed to be, added 2 inches because it seemed a little short, added 2 more inches because it seemed a little short, then I cut off 2 more inches because it didn't seem too long. It's just a matter of fine-tuning it and getting it where you think it needs to be. I may try this on tomorrow and say, oh, this part's wrong, this part's wrong, but the only part right now that I have an issue with is it kind of curves out right here, as you can see. In the picture, it looks more like it comes out straight, so I'm wondering if maybe it should kind of, it shouldn't look like a curve, but maybe it's a little bit wider here. It just kind of angles off more. That's something that I will have to work out. But I mean, overall, even where like the V-neck hits me, it should hit me kind of right in the middle of the solar plexus. It's hitting me in the right spot there. Everything's working out. So I'm gonna let this sit. The belt I've been using, this is just a belt I used for a Fortnite costume. I need a belt to kind of hold everything together because the costume has a belt. So I just want to see, with it belted, where's it all kind of hit and fall. I just need that reference point. Otherwise, the whole thing's just going to be flopping all over the place. It's just a little bit of stability so I can figure out all my reference points. So this tabard has decorative trim going along each edge. And I'm trying to figure that out. Just sketching, you know, basically, I start with the number I think it is. You know, like I think maybe these pieces of trim are 3/4 of an inch. So I'll sketch that out on this tabard. And I did that. Seems like that's too big, so I'm like, okay, let me revise this. Because you can tell there's a relationship between these pieces of trim. You know, like this piece is twice as wide as this piece. And it gives you have a relation between these pieces of trim. It's just a matter of kind of getting the right size where it looks like it'll fit. What it would actually be on the costume on Scorpion himself would be different. I mean, again, that dude is just, he's a massive individual, and I'm not, so I'm trying to scale it down to where it just looks right in my eye to the costume I'm building. And so I've gotten it down to where, I mean, it's almost like this weaving pattern. I mean, there's a couple different things going on. Like on the inside of the neck area, it almost looks like imprinted leather, I would assume. I'm not sure what the material is. And then from there, you've got like this kind of like weaving. It looks like weaving leather, like kind of like an over-under type thing going on. And that's spaced off. Then you've got the tabard, and then you've got a double of that weaving pattern, and then trim on the outside edge. So I'm just trying to sketch out to see what I think looks right. And again, that's probably going to be something that I'm going to get it where I think it needs to be tonight, and then tomorrow I'll look at it again and look at my reference pictures and do it all over again to make sure it's good. I mean, it's one of those things where when you're scaling something off like this, it's just a matter of always looking at it, taking a day, looking at it again. Does it look right? And of course, when I get down to Halloween and I'm pushing the deadline, I'm not going to take quite as much time. But the nice thing is, with so many different pieces of this costume, I can set this aside for a day, I can go to the next piece, and then as I'm waiting a day on that to just see what it looks like after some time off, I can work on this. So I'll go back and forth to different pieces as I'm working on it. So this is what I've got so far on these pieces of trim. And this kind of just a very little trim. This is a very small edge trim. This is the tabard, you know, the yellow color. Then this is this weave thing. I mean, it almost looks like it's almost like a tuck and weave, where there might be like a stitch across here. It's loose, and then another stitch. That's what it looks like now. And so this is this, I mean, I guess it's leather is the intention, but it has this imprint. At first I thought it was 2 vertical, 2 horizontal, and it just flip-flopped. It's actually 2 vertical, 4 horizontal, and that pattern alternates. Now on the other piece of trim, or on the other side of the tabard, it's a pattern similar to this, but it's 3 horizontal, or 3 verticals, 4 horizontal, and then on the outside it's got like just like one kind of line. I don't know why they're different one side or the other. I mean, it looks like from the picture it might be raised. I'm probably going to do an imprint. It's just going to be easier to pound that imprint into it than try to leave that raised and everything else imprinted. But I mean, right now, like that kind of scales out well. Like that looks like, you know, looking at the reference picture. I mean, it's right there. It looks right. So I'm gonna leave it at that. Might end up sketching the entire thing down the entire tabard before I start sewing it, just so I can get the full vision of it. So I'll make sure it looks right. But so far, I mean, this thing, you know, for a knight, that's not bad work. It's looking like Scorpion's tabard. If it was yellow, I think it would be spot on. The Scorpion does have a hood, and I try not to reinvent the wheel if I don't have to. I did this hood a few years ago, maybe many years ago, and it's not a bad shape. I mean, like the overall shape is not bad. You see it poked, you know, it's a little, kind of crown's a little high compared to Scorpions, but this is a great starting point where I can cut out my paper, use this as a reference point, and base off of this. Because overall, like the way it kind of fits around my head, it works really well, and so I can adjust from there instead of starting all the way from scratch and trying to get there. Now, a few things to note is that since I'm going to be having a mask, a half mask, and there's the whole like skull over my face, it's going to make my face larger, a little bit bulkier, so if I like the kind of space around my face with this hood, well, I would need it bigger to account for that. You know, with Scorpion's hood, I may want to do some wire, some kind of plastic to firm up the hood so that it kind of keeps the shape. I mean, this is very flimsy. Overall, this is not a bad hood. It's a great starting point. I really do like this hood. I mean, there's some nice stitching in it. You can see right there, it's got the reinforcing stitching. I don't know what it's called, but this is, you know, this is like that muslin material. I pretty much use this for everything. I love the weave pattern to it. It just has a nice look to it. You know, but I did some stitching around the hood. I mean, it's not bad. I mean, I don't consider myself a great sewer, seamstress. I don't know. I guess it'd be a seamster. I don't know what it'd be. But this is not bad on me. I like the look of this. It came out really well. And I really won't know more until I have my mask in place so I can see exactly how much space I need, how it will fill my head. Because, again, I don't know if this mask is going to go all the way around to the back of my head, if it's just right at the front. I know Scorpion does have a bandana or something going around his head. Those are things I have to figure out. This was part of a Skyrim Elder Scrolls Dragon Priest costume. I love the Elder Scrolls. I had to be something from it, and the Dragon Priest is just too much fun to pass up. I mean, at the time, it pushed my skills way farther than I ever had before. I mean, I usually try to push my skills a little bit each year with a costume. This one is not really pushing any skills. I mean, it's pretty much I'm building on the skills I've had before, but it's just too cool of a costume not to do. Back another day. I'm looking at the tablet. I'm really liking what I'm seeing, but the one thing I was talking about last time is that it kind of has that curve out. And it doesn't look right because it should be straight. And if you look, this whole thing kind of has a curve to it. I think the whole thing needs to be straight. I'm going to cut a new piece, make it straight, and see how that works. Because if you look at it, it comes down, and in the reference photo, it kind of is baggy, bulges right here, because that's that piece, you have that excess to work out the fact that it's all straight. You need that excess to pull it out, straighten up the tabard that comes from the belt down. So I think that's my issue. Everything looks right on that one little piece, the way it curves out, and it should be straight. But the way it hits on the shoulders, the way it hits on the waist, to the length of the tabards, everything looks right. I think if I can fix that one thing, I think I'll be set on this tunic. Of course, the next step in the tunic is all like the little trim pieces, how that works. I've worked out some size, and I need to work out. I mean, I guess I'm gonna do it out of leather. I'm not sure. You know, a lot of things like that, they're thin. You might do it out of foam. With this being the main tunic, and I think it's gonna get some wear and tear. I don't trust foam. Foam is good for pieces that, you know, maybe like my half mask. That is perfect for foam because you're not really gonna tear it up, so I ain't gonna get that much wear. Even like even van braces, bracers. Those get a little bit wear and tear. I mean, you can do foam. I've done foam before. But some of the thin stuff, just with the way your wrist moves and that wear and tear, you start to see just some creases in the foam. You know, leather is a better option there. So I think with the tunic, things have to be leather. So I'll have to dye that leather as well. I don't have any black leather in hand. I have all this other stuff, but not black. Alright, I think this thing is right where it needs to be. You can see this piece is straight. There's no curves. There's no bends. And so to get it, since it is one piece and straight, you have to twist it right at the belt to get it right, and that creates this little pouchy area. Well, if you look at the reference photos, there's a pouch area right there, so that's exactly what's going on. So this, I think, is a very good match to the tunic, scaled to fit me. One thing that's going to hold me up on this is that I do need to strip my wool of dye. And so to do that, I need stripper, and it's going to be a couple days before I get the stripper in. But once that's in, make sure it works on the wool. I feel confident it will, just with, I remember buying it. It shouldn't have any kind of coating. And then once that's done, I can move on this tunic, start getting this thing for real, start getting this thing built in reality. And one thing to note is that, I will be sewing this. I'll be doing like a, what is it? I think a hidden stitch, basically sew it inside out. Because I need a hidden stitch on this, because this wool I won't do double thickness. I'll have to think about that. I'm like, I can sew, but I don't really know what I'm doing, man. I do enough to get it done. It looks good. That's the extent of my skills. So I have to figure out, because it will need a binder. Yes, I guess I won't need to do a hidden stitch and sew it inside out. I'll just be attaching everything on top. And as far as like the trim, it looks like the thing's kind of sewn to the trim and split. I'm just gonna put the trim on top of it. Like, that's gonna be my base. I'm gonna build on top of that. I'm gonna try to like split it and do it in the middle. That's way too much trouble. So tunic looks good. I'm gonna just probably sketch the trim on, because I would like to try this on and kind of see a sketch of the trim on this, just to make sure it still looks right in proportion. Next is the hood, and after that, I don't know. Oh, I do have one thing to show you. I did get some plastic chain, and so originally I was thinking that I'd do metal chain for like the main kunai, metal chain around the belt, just get that good sound. This stuff is nice and lightweight, and I've got 25 feet of it, so I'm thinking I'm going to put this on the belt as well, and the main chain will just be the kunai. That's all you need. That'll still give you the sound. I'm going to have it on my wrist. You'll still hear it, but this just doesn't have the right sound. On the belt, it's going to be pulled tight. It's not going to be moving around a lot, so I don't think it's going to make much noise. But I really like this. I mean, obviously it looks a little plasticky, a little bit of paint, a little bit of weathering. It's going to fix that. But this is the first piece I had to come in, and man, it's going to be awesome. And and plus, also not using real chain on the waist allows me to save some money. I can buy 6 feet less chain than this I already have. I'm all about saving some money on building these costumes. It's balling on a budget. A hood is incredibly difficult to template out with a sheet of paper, because the paper never drapes right. I mean, I try this thing on. It's hard to get a good look at what this is. I mean, you can get an idea, but this is based off the hood I have. And the hood I have looks really good. It's got like a little bit of a peak in the crown that I try to get out of this. But really, I'm just doing this because there's a piece that goes around the chest, over the shoulders, around the back that you can't really see because of the armor on Scorpion. So I probably will build the armor first and then just make the base match that. I mean, it looks like it could button in the middle. There's like some rings from the armor. The hood kind of comes down to a point right here. So I think there's probably a button or snap. It might be concealed. I don't know. So this doesn't give me like a great idea of how this thing will drape, but I know my other hood works really well, and I fixed the crown issue, so I think it'll give me an idea. I did sketch out the pleats. There's some pleats and some stitching on the side of the hood, so this will give me a kind of base point to do that. It's not great, but it'll at least give me a starting point for whatever goes around the shoulder, whatever that's called. So I think up next, there's some, I don't know what they call it, like towels hanging from the belt that are red and black. And the weird thing is, like on the front one, it's under the belt, above the tabard. On the sides, it's below the belt, below the tabard. So I don't know how they work. I mean, they look like they're going to be pretty simple. I think the most complex part of that is just going to be getting the pattern right where it looks like it scales correctly. But there's one in the front, one on each side. I don't think there's one in the back. Let me check my reference photo. No, none on the back. So there's 3 of them, and that's just a matter of kind of getting the size right. And I don't know how I'm going to attach those. I mean, I guess they're just going to attach to the belt. Except the weird thing is the side ones are under the belt, under the tunic. So I guess the front one I'll sew on top of the tunic, the sides on underneath the tunic tabard. I'll figure that out. Also, the undershirt, it looks like kind of type of G type thing. I'm going to be having sleeves on that, so I need to figure out how that works. Like with all these costume pieces, understand that, hey, if you're going to have multiple layers, you need to make these things a bit looser. Like this tabard, if I was making this really snug, well, if I'm wearing like a t-shirt and then a G on top of that, and then a tunic tabard, well, it's going to make it, even more snug than I was planning to. So always get an idea of how many layers you're going to have so that you get that stuff right, so it's not too small or too loose or too whatever when you're building it. So up next, I'm going to put the hood on hold. The tunic is on hold until I figure out what I'm doing with my wool and whether the dye will strip that. So next I'm going to do the towels, and again, if you know the names to these pieces, please let me know. I don't know what those towels are called. They're red and black, and they look cool. They're nice detail, I wish I had a name for them. That's next. Then I think the undershirt, maybe the belt. You know, the belt. You see this canvas belt I've been using just to see how everything works out with the tabard, just to see how it hangs. That belt kind of helps keep the middle in place, you know, to act as a surrogate belt until I get one. So for now, let's move to these towels, see if I can get that design on paper. So this front towel just looks really small for some reason. Going back to the reference pictures, I'm thinking I'm going to make this tabard about 2 inches wider. I'll make this a little bit wider and make it look a little bit bigger. I mean, you know, I really think the tabard looks good. It looks fine proportion-wise, but I think I could stand to go just a little bit wider in here. I mean, looking at the reference pictures, it's difficult to see, but I think it needs to be wider now. And I think this will make this a little bit bigger, which will just help everything. It looks too small for some reason. I mean, I think it's in proportion to what I've got as far as this width, but I think I got it a little bit wider. And you know, that's the thing. That's why I try not to complete any one thing at one time. I build it all a little bit concurrently, just because, you know, when I put these shoulders on, it may change the look of the hood, of the tabard, you know, the shoulder area. You know, everything kind of works together for that proportion, and it's just difficult to build each piece individually. That's why I try to build it concurrently, just so you can get an idea. I mean, you know, this tabard looked fine. I put this towel in here, and it just doesn't look right. And the only way I know to make it look better is to widen the whole thing. And looking at the reference picture, I think maybe it should be a little bit wider. That's one of those things. You look at these things so many times, and you think, it's right. And then you see another thing that catches your eye, and you think, okay, no, it's not right. It's an iterative process. So I've added 2 inches to the bottom of this. I've tried to taper it in because the width of the shoulder is perfect, but it's just a very stark contrast. So I might do is just have this come up consistent 2 inches, and then at the belt just cut in. The width down here, I mean, I really like the 2 inch, making it wider. I think this towel looks a lot better. You know, it just looks a little more substantial. Before it looked a little skinny. I think at this point, it just, proportions work better. But I need to keep this shoulder the width it is because it works perfect. So I think I'm just going to, you know, cheat a little bit right at the belt. Come to the belt, you're not going to see, so it can come down, it'll jut out, go right back down. I think that's the way I'm going to do it because I like the extra width on the bottom. I like the way this towel is, given that 2 inches. So again, always an iterative process. All right, so I've got, let's see, the tabard, I did an L cut right here, so that's going to be hidden under the belt. And with that, I mean, this towel looks great right there. The proportions are much better. Making this wider, the side towel, it fits better. It should hit the tabard front to back, and it does. So I think this stuff is looking good. I need to make another one of these for the side. But I think we're 1 step closer, 1 inch closer. So I think I've got a pretty good idea of how I'm going to do the belt. I'm going to do EVA foam. It will be 5 inches tall. But, you know, you wrap it with some leather like this. I mean, that has a good look to it. It has a nice thickness to it. I like the rigidity the EVA foam offers because this leather is kind of thin, but it is easy to sew when it's thin like that. So there are some like flaps that loop around. I looked at maybe some thicker leather. The problem is the thicker leather, it's a lot more difficult to sew. So it looks like there's this kind of a seam on the edge of it. So I'm thinking maybe if I have some more of this thin leather, I can use that. Because if you create a seam on the edge of it, you hem it. You know, it gives you that thickness where you can see where the material differs from, you know, the regular belt to this flap. That they're kind of long. So I think a seam would look good there. I mean, that is the look. I mean, that to me looks like what's on the reference picture. That is a good look. I like how that looks. So if I have enough of this thin stuff, I think I can make that work. But I do like the EVA foam wrapped in leather. I mean, that looks right to me. So if I can get it black, if I can get it right, I've got a fair amount of this thin stuff, so I think I can make that work one way or another. I mean, I'm not sure the black will dye different colors of leather to get the same. I think they're still going to look off the hue. But I think I got this thing figured out. I mean, the next step is start cutting out some EVA foam. And again, I still need to figure out how I'm going to lash it. You know, there's a flap right in the middle, so I might just make it where this flap can come off, will fold down. I have a latch here where I can latch it, and then maybe just bring it back in. Maybe there's Velcro in the back. That way, I've got the latch concealed. I still have the front flap. I mean, it needs to be in the front somewhere. I think, you know, just Velcro right there, unflip that Velcro, have a latch right in here. I mean, I think a plastic latch would work. I need something, with EVA foam, I do everything with contact cement. So you need something to, if I do the plastic buckle, something to tie in very far to the EVA foam with the contact cement. I mean, maybe in leather to hold it. But you need something because if you can't just glue it to the end. You need something that ties to the buckle, ties way far back to give you a lot of contact area, which gives you a lot of strength. I've made a lot of progress so far. I've been really pleased with the progress. And as it always gets closer to Halloween, I always get a little more nervous because I always feel like I'm fighting the clock. But I've gotten some of them really start. Usually I start around October 1st. This one, everything kind of happened where I started a little bit earlier. Good progress so far. Still a lot to do. Still a lot of big hurdles to clear. The next big step is the undershirt, because I do want to add sleeves. I'm wondering, do I add some upholstery foam to kind of pad it to make me look a little more muscular than I am, to look more like Scorpion? That I don't know. Generally, when I start with an undershirt or something like that, I try not to start from scratch. I'm going to find a long sleeve shirt that I have that kind of fits the way I want it to, or fits the way I think this undershirt would fit, and use that as a template to start from there. And that will give you an idea, like, oh, the sleeves are, they're a little too snug. Let me add an inch here. Let me add an inch there, and use that as a reference. Always use a reference point if you can, because it's much easier than start from scratch. So the next steps will be sorting out some of the stuff I've already built, and then also doing the undershirt, because that undershirt, it needs to fit under the tunic. It needs to look right. The stitching, I do want to do a diamond thread pattern going down the sleeve, which would be a nice texture. And it really only has to go about 3/4 of the length, because I'm going to have the bracers on the arms, so that'll be good. The bracers might be next, and that's going to be a pretty, I like to work top bottom. Generally, when people look at you, they look at the face, the head, and I'm waiting on that skeleton mask. As soon as that comes in, I'm going to be putting that thing together. I have a feeling I'm going to be cutting it apart, because even though I ordered the largest size I could find, I don't think it's going to be enough to fit on my head, even though I want it to fit snug. But we'll see. I mean, maybe I'll get lucky. Maybe it'll fit right. But I'm having a feeling I'm going to have to cut it up and section a little bit to get it a little bit wider, a little bit bigger. We'll see. So I cut the belt to 5 inches tall. I kind of guessed on the reference model it was about 6. I was like, I've been seeing everything a little bit smaller just to fit me. 5, I mean, it looks good. It looks right. This is about where I would wear it, just where it would be comfortable for me, because, again, like the reference looks like it might be a little higher. I don't want to wear a belt that high. So this looks good. Now I just need to figure out how thick it needs to be. I mean, it really is a very padded, thick belt. I am going to use EVA foam to get that thickness to it. I don't know how I'm going to do the buckle. I do want the big skull belt buckle, but I need some kind of hidden clasp. So since this had this padding on the sides, on the front, I think I can just conceal a buckle in there. I'll have to think about that and kind of get an idea of how big, because there's different stitching and seams in there. I don't have the skull belt buckle yet, so I need to get that. But yeah, I mean this looks right. I mean, look at it. Look at the thickness of it. It looks about the right thickness. So the next step is to start getting some EVA foam. Well, the next step is to really pin down this design and then get the EVA foam. I need to figure out how I'm going to buckle it. I don't know if I'm going to do some kind of plastic clasp like this belt I have that I've been using just as a reference point to hold the costume together. I don't know, maybe just some kind of metal hook. Because I got to figure out how I'm going to hide it. Because there's no clasp. Well, in the reference video I'm looking at, there's like a buckle, just a typical buckle, but I don't want that, man. I got dressed up. I got to have that skull belt buckle.